I really didn't know what the diagnosis of autism meant.
Like diagnosis is for insurance purposes, honestly, for coding. Like,
What are some ways when people are in the midst of that and going through that?
if someone is in the midst of it, I don't want them to help themselves. Because when you're in the midst of something, the system is actually moving them through as they see.
Hello, thank you for joining us today. I am so glad you're here with us today because today I have a very special guest and a dear friend of mine by the name of Mr. Rob Cook. So Rob Cook is a international trauma coach and speaker. And I went to see him some time ago about my personal trauma, which he helped me with. But I really, really wanted him on today, you guys, to talk about the trauma that can also be related as a parent when you're getting the diagnosis of autism about your child, or ADHD, or any of the neurodivergent diagnoses. So, hi, Rob. How are you doing today?
How are you?
I am fantastic.
Thank you for having me.
Living a dream. So, I'm really glad you're here today to help shed some light on this because it's really important. I know for me, when I first got the diagnosis for Jordan, which is my youngest, I was floored. I didn't see it coming. And when they first tried to diagnose him, he was a baby. And I didn't think kids could be diagnosed that young, but the pediatrician had seen markers to where he really thought it was autism, and he wanted me to get that checked out. And I remember at the time, I had all these thoughts going through my mind, just running, like, is my baby going to be able to talk? Is he going to be able to communicate? Will he do well in society? You know, I really didn't know what the diagnosis of autism meant. I only knew what I saw on TV or in the movies, things like that. And as he got a little bit older and that diagnosis was confirmed, it just kind of continued. I never really took the time out to care for myself because I was constantly taking care of him, you know, trying to find out what supports he needed, what therapy he needed. In school, he was having problems. We go to the supermarket and he would have meltdowns from sensory issues, like it would be too bright or too noisy. And, you know, depending on people's reactions, whether they thought I wasn't disciplining my child and he was just bad, or whether the store manager told us we had to leave because the meltdown was too bad. Over time, I really didn't want to leave my house. You know, and these were the days before Instacart for groceries came into play. So I had to go grocery shopping. There's certain things I had to do. And being a single parent, he had to be with me. But I just know how isolated I felt. And, you know, I was just real hyper vigilant, you know? Like I just felt like I was a zombie most days. But I'm just going to let you take the show and just kind of shed some light about that.
No, one, again, thank you for having me. I really love from the moment we started working together that you had something you wanted to change. Like that's always inspired me about you, you know, just you kind of settled in and got to work. So that's first. But to your point about the help, I think what was super cool with you and why you, for me, were such a transformative, again, it was the moment, you're the client that I start calling myself a coach behind because I saw something shift. And I didn't really know fully when we started working together, but somewhere along the way, you actually taught me something. And I don't even think I've ever even told you. You taught me there is no difference because what I had experience with was the diagnosis of PTSD and how that traumatically affected a family. Would they be able to communicate? Would I be numb for the rest of my life? Would I be so everything you just named that you were dealing with Jordan? What is society going to say? We're hiding weapons in the house. Like everything you were experiencing, although the narrative for it or the topic for it was ADHD with him, it was PTSD for me. So it kind of you woke me up to seeing that anybody coming into a diagnosis is probably going to be facing this way with the harsh stigmas we have around them. And it was kind of like, oh, that's a place for me to put in some effort of waking people up to having these diagnoses. Having these diagnoses don't necessarily identify them, don't necessarily truly say who they are and who they can be in life. And I think we need to start saying that. Like, diagnoses for insurance purposes, honestly, for coding. Like, it's not really to label your experience of life. And you helped me see that. And it's woken up in many ways with just the platforms I'm willing to speak on now. Because normally I would have said, well, oh, no, ADHD isn't my thing. But we're really talking about the same thing. Slowing down enough, waking up to an understanding of life where no matter how I go about it, it's in a loving manner. And shout out to Jordan, the homie, because I love him, That's my guy.
Yes, shout out Jordan. He's going to love that.
Yeah.
We're going to change gears for a moment. So, like what you were saying, how there's a connection, and even though people might think PTSD, oh, okay, that deals with military service. PTSD can be for many things, which we know.
Oh, anything.
Right.
Yeah.
And when someone's in the throes of trauma, oftentimes they don't see it, What are some ways when people are in the midst of that and going through that they can kind of help themselves, even though they might not be aware that they're in it?
Yeah. For me, and I'll preface all of what I'm about to say is that I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist. I'm just a guy who had an awful experience with the negative experiences I had in my life, and they affected me in a horrible way, to the fact of even thinking if I wanted to be here or not. From that, I now love living life. So that's the only education, that's the only credential I have. If someone is in the midst of it, I don't want them to help themselves. Because when you're in the midst of something or in the flow of something, the system is actually moving them through as they see. The part I want to help people with is once you're out of danger, I don't want you trying to get out of danger if you're getting your head beat in every day. I don't know. Like, let's get you to a safe space. I don't need you working on yourself. Let's get you to safety, That's the first thing. None of anything we do, whether I'm talking to you about ADHD or talking to someone about trauma, if they're not in a safe space, it's worthless. It's not even a conversation worth having. So once we get them to a safe space, or you can get to a safe space where you could kind of let your guard down, your answers will come to you. People you should reach out to, areas you can go for support and help. It's reaffirming in those, when they go through these experiences, that they're still okay. Like, all of the behaviors, all of the energy and everything that was expressed was to navigate them through the traumatic experience. Now let's go back to normal. We don't have to be as hypervigilant anymore. We're no longer in the threat. We're safe. We're okay. And I think when people can realize the difference in being okay physically, like right now, for instance, if I were to start talking to you about being mortar attack in Iraq, right? Well, I shouldn't feel the way that I felt in Iraq getting mortared because I'm here in my studio right now. I'm safe. You feel me? Like I'm not being mortared. So here. So if I can get people to see here, like, slow down. What's happening in front of you right now? If they see that, they typically know how to respond. And you do that in enough repetition, you gain a confidence, you gain a determination to have a wonderful experience of life, because you're not as scared anymore. So if you are in danger, let's find a way to get you to safety. And if you're safe, then let's put in some work and get you back into experiencing life.
Absolutely. And if you are feeling like that and you are in danger, please reach out to someone. even if it's
Yes.
me. Feel free to reach
facts.
out to me.
Too.
Right.
Facts.
One thing that I found when I was working with you on my trauma, and it would have been great if I had reconnected with you during that time frame when I was going through all those traumatic experiences with Jordan. So, you guys, that didn't come, me working with Rob didn't come till years and years later with dealing with my own personal trauma from when I was younger. But one thing I noticed was that when I was working with you and I wasn't overthinking so much, you know, and being on that thought hamster wheel with my ADHD, as I slowed down, I saw a shift in my son. You know, with him being on the spectrum, there's certain things, if I try to discuss it with him, because he's so literal and so logical, he just doesn't grasp it and understand it in the way that someone else might. But what he was able to see a difference in is what he felt. So I remember as I was starting not to be so wrapped up in my trauma and my overthinking, guys, we were in the car one day, and my son looked over to me and he said to me, "Mom, you're so unstressed. What are you doing?" And it kind of took me off guard. So, you know, I was kind of like, "What do you mean? What do you mean I'm unstressed?" And he was just like, "You're so calm," you know? And I knew what was going on with me. I knew the changes that were happening with me. I could feel that, but I didn't know he could sense that. You know, he was one of the first people that sensed that, and to such a level that surprised me. So I just wanted to tell people out there that even if your child is nonverbal and on the spectrum, as you're able to get that help and settle your mind more and come out of that hypervigilant state, don't be surprised if your children feel it. They might not be able to express it to you. They might not be able to have a conversation with you about it, but they're going to notice a shift in you. And that was the first time I really became aware that where I am in my thoughts, you know, where I am in my state of being at that particular time really, really affects him, even if we don't exchange any words. And working with you highlighted that for me. So I just want to know if you wanted to comment on that at all for me.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you said so much, because what Jordan did was just show you the truth. What he showed you was all those words aren't really necessary. That's why they're so confusing for me. Like, that's why. Like, for me, when people say on the spectrum, I honestly say, oh, one dimension closer to God. They don't have as much filtering in between them and society. And I'll give you an example. My niece is diagnosed with ADHD, and I remember the I want to say the retrain, but I'll use the term retrain because it's the term my mother used for her. So my mother has custody of this particular niece, and they were giving her these labels, and the first thing I was like, "Mom, we're not going to medicate her. Let's just see first." And I'm not poo-pooing medication. Let me say that. It's not that I'm saying I'm against medication. What I'm saying is we don't even know what we're dealing with yet. So medication can't be the first thing we go to. So let's just slow down for a minute. Let's see how much of this is development. Let's see how much of this is environment. Let's see how much of this, because there's a story to why you even have custody of her as a baby anyway, right? So we have to slow down a little bit. But this is what happened with my niece. She was in the house playing, and where I'm from in the South, we still spank, or they still spank, right? And so to me, it's absurd. Like, I can't even comprehend it anymore, right? And so my mom, my brother, my niece, and me, we're all at the house, and she's playing with a ball in the house. And granted, my mom and my brother has told her at least 10 times to put it down, and she hasn't. I get it. That's the optics, right? So I take the ball from her and I put it up because they're at about a 9 and a 10. You know, their tempers are, they about to spank her or at least punish her or some, right? And so here I go, Uncle Rob going to save the day. I'm just going to take the ball and put it up so she can't have the ball. And if she can't have the ball, she can't play with the ball in the house. Grandma can't get mad. Brother can't get mad. She can't get a spanking. Uncle Robert saved the day. She falls out into an all-out tantrum. And I'm like, oh, crap. What? Oh. So then now my mom and my brother definitely calming. So, oh, come here, go get that belt. I said, go, I got this, right? Push him off, whatever. I said, hey, baby, can Uncle Robert tell you why I did what I did? And she goes, okay. I said, my mom, your grandma was starting to get this and your daddy was getting this and I just thought you were going to get a spanking and I really, baby, didn't want you to get a spanking. And then she goes, okay, Uncle Robert, but it still hurt my feelings. And it was like, oh, snap. You're 5 years old playing with a ball and somebody just took it. Of course that hurts your feelings. Like, it was like, oh my God, nothing's wrong with you. Like I remember my mom was like, what's wrong with you? I was like, no, Mom, nothing's wrong with her. We're not doing medication. We're not doing nothing. My mom was like, what? Nothing. Like, and that was the stance I had on my niece, right? So we would go through school. The school's campus like, no, we got to do it. I was like, we not doing it. It's just the way it's communication. And Sam, the book, Beyond ADHD, Sam helped me learn a lot of that as well and talking to him sometime. But when I saw that on my niece, I was like, we just talking differently. That's all. Like, that is all. And she'll call me right to this day. If my mom says, hey, your uncle's on the phone, she's like, he's not my uncle, he's my best friend. Like, it's because I what I know is I communicate to her how she receives, which is without all the innuendos and all the connecting the dots no, they don't do that. It's kind of a authenticity to it. It's a rawness to it. It's a no BS-ness to it, you know, that they'll tune out on you in a second.
Oh, yeah.
It's almost like they're the gauge. They're really, honestly, we think we're going around and they need us in a sense, but they're actually the gauges in which we should be vibing off of, because they'll tell you who's full of crap and who's not in a minute, in whatever way, you know, because I say one dimension closer to God. So yeah, I
love that.
They're beautiful. It's so interesting because when you said the things, I've seen it happen. When the caretaker or the parent or the other person really slows down and don't see a deficit, a conditioning of program deficit, that's the feeling piece you're talking about. Because the kid know they're not broken. They just trying to stay out the way because everybody keep talking crap about it. They know it. They know they not. But then when an adult is willing to stop vibrating at society mode and label and conditioning and level and really just be human, name a kid that has never engaged who's been on the spectrum with the human being that does that. Even the most severe cases, as we say, have moments in which they've connected with somebody, and the only thing across the board is the lack of BS in which the person who was interacting with them is. That's it. They not the problem. The research, the way we looking at, they not the problem.
Yeah.
But I'll get off my soapbox. I'm sorry. It's your show. It's your show.
I love it. No, that's what you're here for. You're here to talk. So, no. And that's what I want you to do. But this is great because just listening to what you're saying brings me back to my own childhood as well as parenting him. So growing up with ADHD and it being undiagnosed, there were times where it's what you said. People would communicate with me and it would make me feel a certain kind of way because if I didn't, quote, get it, then they would make me feel like, oh, you know, you're ditzy or you're spacey or if I'm saying something and I'm thinking I'm just being truthful and, you know, they're thinking I'm being too abrasive or aggressive or, you know, you can't say it like that or that's not appropriate. You know, that's a phrase that a lot of kids hear growing up. That's not appropriate. You can't do that. That's not appropriate. And it's funny because I remember how that made me feel. And later on in life, when Jordan was young and I was parenting him, there were these moments where, of course, as parents, we're in survival mode a lot of the time. You know, we're busy thinking of providing and, you know, keeping our children safe, feeding our kids, making sure they're good. So there would be so many moments where I catch myself doing the same thing that other adults did to me growing up. And it would be like, no, Jordan, you can't do that. That's not appropriate. Or you can't say that to that person because, you know, like that's too literal. That's too direct and you can't do that. And him being so confused and, you know, then he's confused. He's frustrated. So I'm frustrated. And, you know, just learning to, like you said, slow down my God. Because I remember when I used to be so frustrated, I used to just yell at him all the time, you know, and I would just want him to listen. Like, just listen. What are you doing? You know, you're running around. I need you to sit down. No, I don't want to sit down and not talking to him.
Exactly.
Right.
Why?
So, and it wasn't until he went away to spend some time with my mom. I don't know if it was for the summertime or Christmas, something like that. And she had him for those couple of weeks. And, you know, growing up, same thing. You know, I grew up in Georgia, so, you know, my mom didn't play. You're not gonna play that with her. You ain't gonna disrespect her like that. So, you know, I knew she'd be able to handle him. Everything would be fine and everything. But what was so funny was that she came back to me and she was like, Danielle, she was like, why are you yelling at him so much? She said, I didn't have to yell at him. All I had to do was talk to him. So, of course.
Because it's a grandparent.
Right. And, of course, I jumped to what do you mean you didn't yell at him? You didn't just talk to me. Like, wait a minute.
The love. You actually said it. And when you said it, that's why I got so excited because it's the first time I kind of realized it. Because instinctively we believe survival, also the next closest thing in survival is community or connection because I am more safe in numbers. So the rules that I put on the child come from oh my God, the people in society won't think you're regular or normal or this, and that's what we need for survival. We can't be outcasted for them. Again, dimension level to God, they don't have that filter. They're okay being themselves. They can stand on their word. That's why it may come out weird sometimes. And you're like, you can't say it that way. It was the truth, though. Because what they're not doing is spewing lies. That's the other part. It doesn't have an intentful harm. That's why it lands with people and they go, you can't do that. You can't say that. That's because I'm rubbing up against now your instinct to want to be in community and survive rather than hear the truth of what I just said. Like there's a beauty and a gift to them and operating in this world if we can listen to it. Again, they're one dimension closer, man. It's insane.
It is.
Like anytime I'm somewhere and I see Down syndrome, anything now that people have been classified as not, I want to go have a conversation. I want to hug them. I want to high five them. If that's the level of interaction they're comfortable with, I get. But yeah, man, I think we've been looking at this all the way wrong.
Oh yeah.
Like and if we slow down and begin to listen to some of those kids, I think some of the inhumane things that have became of existence in our lives wouldn't be there. Like they're just loving. They're they get angry, but that's only in the sense of not knowing what else to do and not being, we're talking kids still, not fully able to function yet. They don't know which tool goes to what yet. I get that part.
Yeah.
But people respond to that. And so if I only know getting my needs met means this behavior as a child, of course I use it. Like, so why would I blame them for that? What child wouldn't do that? They're just like every other child. That's what I'm saying. You know, so it's just like, oh man, I love it though. But I mean, but they'll see. Like through your work, through Jordan, when he begins to do whatever he wants to do in this world and continue having these conversations, they'll see. I mean, we created a stigma and a gap in our experiences together that didn't really have a need to be there.
Yeah, that's true. And, you know, it's interesting because he's heard me before talk about when he was younger. And he was like, Mom, he came to me and was like, Mom, I'm so sorry. And I was like, what are you sorry for? Mm-hmm. And he was just like, I didn't know I did all that. He said, I don't even remember all that. It's funny because the things he remembers are the good things that he holds on to. Like he'll be like, well, I remember when we used to watch PBS Kids together, and he'll name particular shows. Or I remember when I first saw Michael Jackson on YouTube, and, you know, I didn't know who he was, and you came and talked to me about him because he's like a huge Michael Jackson fan. But I noticed that when he's talking about his childhood, he's talking about all the good things that he remembers. Whereas when he overheard me talking about some of the things, he had no clue he was doing those things. And he was just like, that must have been really hard for you. And I mean, I just wanted to burst out crying because I was just like, oh my gosh, what is happening right now?
Because you see life differently.
Yeah.
You see life differently.
Yeah.
Like he innocently was just doing life. So to get a awareness of what it was for it not to come out right, of course that hurt him. I don't get it always right. Again, that's why I said we model them. That's what it's supposed to be. Instead of what we would do is, oh, well, you know, I got a diagnosis. Don't be coming at me like that. You ain't got to be telling my business like that, because that's what we, you know, that's us in our mind. That's the dumb crap we would do. But they're so, their heart is so uncontaminated, man. It's like, oh, wow. The empathy is there for you. Period.
Yeah.
Like, again, they're so, if they feel safe, man, they're so secure in their being, they can stand on their own word. That's really what we want people to do.
Right.
It's like that's why, man, I can go on and on. It's like, that's why I love the kid, Jordan, especially, because it's like, in a way, you think you're taking care of him, and all along, he knows he's taking care of you.
Right.
Like I'm so serious about it. Like, it's like, it almost feels like when I watch him interact with you, it's like, yeah, Mom, thank you. I need you. Love you. Okay, she's happy. And he just gets you along because he makes you dig.
Yeah.
He makes you slow down. He is a real life piece of consciousness in your face.
Yes. That's a good way of putting that. Yes, like he is.
Right there.
Right.
You know what I mean? That thing you said he did the other day where he was like, are you just crying? Are you...
Right.
Are you okay? Like, which one? So I know, once he found out you were okay, he was like, oh, okay, good. Back to business. On back to what I was doing.
Right.
What? What?
Right.
That's what we want from everybody.
Yeah. Even when I'm not aware of what I'm feeling in that moment because I'm in go mode. And you know what go mode is for me.
Yeah.
So even when I'm like that, and I may talk to him and I'm in like go mode, I'm like, yeah, Jordan, I need you to do such and such. Or I'm just talking to him and I'm thinking I'm speaking regular to him. And he'll look at me and he'll be like, okay, Mom. And he'll be like, what's wrong? And, you know, I'm puzzled, like, nothing's wrong. What do you mean, what's wrong? And he'll be like, well, why do you sound like that? And then I'll pause for a minute and think and be like, okay, how do I sound? Like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
And then I'm
you
like,
sound
okay.
off from the rhythm. You sound off from the rhythm I communicate on.
Right.
Like, you know me. I'm your son. Like, same thing with my niece. I'm like, Mom, it's not she's having good day, bad day, good day, bad day. She is the same every day when she gets up to do her thing. It's you. And she was like, me? I'm like, yes, you, mama. I said, you know how she hears information. She was like, well, I was in a rush. I didn't have time. There it goes. So that's not on her. You were in a rush. So you decided to communicate in a way that she's not receptive to. That's not her if it didn't land. That's you because you didn't slow down and communicate on the level you know she hears. Or on the level you know she hears. Whichever wavelength. That's a you thing, mama. That's not the baby. And it was like, oh, yeah. Yeah, because they good. And she was like, I can see that now. Yeah, that's what they gonna do what you need. But why are you off? Because you're only off because when you slow down to me, that says you're loving me. I'm the present moment piece of attention in which you're paying attention to, in a sense, or I'm the projection of your paying attention right now. Right. So if you speed talking me, what's got your attention? If you what's important enough that you're going to forfeit the way you communicate with me to shoot a message at me that I'm supposed to really need, obviously. But why would you forfeit the way I hear it then? What's so important? And then when we look at that, it's usually nothing. And right. So then the kid, of course, is mad. So wait a minute. That caused you to throw messages at me in a way. That's almost like throwing your food at somebody. If I say, hey, you come over for dinner for burgers and fries, and I throw the bun at you, I throw the tomatoes at you, I throw the lettuce at you, I throw the meat at you, you know what I'm saying? And then throw the fries at you. That's what you're doing. Well, not you know what I'm saying? That's essentially what we're doing in a sense. It's like, no, come on, man. I can't eat that. Stop. That's funny.
That is. So, and I can relate to that. So we're going to go back to the parents for a moment, or what we were talking about earlier. So for the parents who may be caught up in their thinking or whatever it is that have them communicating differently or have them delivering the message in not a more calmer state, what would you say to them to help them to slow down or to help them to be more aware?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Currently, because of the way society takes these labels, the first thing we need to do is accept there's going to be a level of difference in our baby's experience. Just because of the ignorance of the masses. Nothing to the discredit of the child, which is sad, but to the masses, right? And so when we accept that, what happens is we fall into a set of behaviors that become about minimizing those interactions with those group of people, right? So I liken it to me, for instance, right? Large crowds, loud noises, things like that, at some sense still get my attention. Again, difference is when I identify what they are and know that I'm not in danger anymore, I'm okay to come back to this moment. Well, what I would say to the parent is when you are starting to get worked up about something, just go back to the love of the child for a moment. And then communicate what you need to communicate. Even if it's something that, like, you can say something you're frustrated about with a loving tone. Like, you told me to kiss in so many words, you gave me the finger the most nicest way ever once. When I was challenging you and helping you, grow and see something else, your face said, your energy said, screw you, Rob, but it was in the most loving way. Right? It wasn't screw me, Rob. It was, you're pushing me, you're challenging me. That's what I get that. You know what I mean? So yeah, you could say the frustrated thing about their behavior to them, yeah, but in a loving voice. Like, understand that that is the only language you're going to be able to communicate with for the rest of your child life. You don't get the luxury of speaking in frustration and the kid being able to dissect it. You don't get that luxury. You don't get the luxury of being able to throw stuff at the kid and fix it later, and do all the stuff that normal parents do. So you are going to have to slow down, and each moment counts. There is no wasted coins in this dimension here. And I think that's the part. Because that and all that points to is I love for that child enough that I'm willing to do that. Yeah, okay. And so that was what I had to do. I had to slow down. I had to learn where I was comfortable talking. I had to see there was just things about my life I changed until I got strong enough to handle more and more. I grow consistently. We grow daily. It may not always be like that, but there are things I started with when the PTSD was extreme to now pretty much, I went to a football game at a stadium. Like, a little shake off, but I enjoyed the game, elements of it, again, it's just, it was a flow of in and out of, I'm okay, I'm safe. And then the mind wanted to run off. So I was just say to them, slow down, remember to love and make each moment count. Because it's nothing better than that smile that reflects back up to you that says, thank you for taking care of me. Because that's what it means. It's nothing better than that.
I love that. And I'm just going to put in there, for all you parents out there that just heard that, to also give yourself some grace. Give yourself some grace. This doesn't happen overnight. There might be days where you miss the mark, you feel like, you didn't quite make the mark, and that's okay. Give yourself some grace. Continue to know that you love your child, even when things don't seem like they're going in the manner that you feel like that they should. Even though they're not going in the manner that you think they should go, in the end, it's always going to be okay. It's going to be okay. And I wish I had known that back then with him, but of course I know that now, so that's pretty awesome. Before you go, Rob, I also, if it's okay with you, wanted you to suggest some things that parents can do when it comes to their self-care.
Okay. Well, one of them you just said, which would be, I'll do it this way. I think some of the things parents could do for self-care would be one of the things you just mentioned, which was give themselves some grace. Like, start there. And from the giving yourself grace, I typically like to play in 3 areas. So, hydrate a little bit more. Make sure you get good rest. And the reason you want to get good rest is because when you go to sleep, your brain actually conducts a brainwash and kind of and removes toxins and stuff from around the brain, allowing it to kind of be more elastic and fire a lot better, right? So that's why rest is so great. If you are fatigued, the situation will be harder. Days are just longer when you're fatigued, whether the child is on the spectrum or not. So when you have a child who is on the spectrum, knowing that the experience is going to be different, fatigue just, again, it takes, you don't have a luxury. Support group. When I hear parents talk, it sounds lonely, but it's a difference in being lonely or feeling lonely, but being alone. Like, you can feel lonely. That'll rock. That'll roll. You'll go in and out of that, but you can't be alone. You gotta have some people you can contact who understand, who could support. You just have to build a village. Maybe that's with people who have the similar experience, but you got to be able to have I need a moment. Intervene with me. Again, these are because your experience is different. Like my daughters, we have we got codes. Because for me, I want to fix everything for them. Right? So the code is, I want to do that because I feel, I ain't gonna say I feel, but there are times I am aware of guilt tripping myself about poor decisions as a parent with always trying to achieve and not being at certain events and things like that, right? So I'll play to that mode of thinking for myself and get noisy in my head, right? But what we put into place, I told them no. And I told them, and so they was like, okay, so then if it's not over a 7, we still want to handle it. You don't have to say no, you just got to listen anyway. But if it's over 7, we'll start there. We'll tell you it's over 7 so you can do daddy. So that's that's my team. They want my opinion. They know I'm kind of different with it, right? And now we don't need any of that. I understand the regulation of it now. I can regulate now because I had some safe experiences with it to learn. So yeah, those are some things I would say, dude. Just slow down, love on them babies, man. Love on them, get to love them, get to know them, get to hear them.
Absolutely, I love that. Oh, this has been wonderful today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Anytime. So this was a treat, and you guys, thank you for joining us today. Before we go, Rob, do you want to let the people know where they can reach you?
Yes, absolutely. People. Who is the people? Them people. Who is them? Nah. No, seriously. Again, thank you so much for having me. And to everyone that here, you can find me at imrobcook.com. That is IMROBCOOK.com. Yeah, it's a playlist there, a hub. Go out, information, resources. Dig around.
All right. And to everyone out there, blessings to you and yours. And until the next time, I love you.